The main focus of my work these days is medicinal cookery. Now you might be wondering what on earth that is. Medicinal cookery, basically it's preparing therapeutic dishes designed to target specific conditions based on the actual pharmacological activity of each individual ingredient used. You could kind of view it as being the art of medical herbalism, but applied to culinary plants. This concept really hit me when I was doing my herbal medicine degree at Westminster. Is there any other herbalists here, by the way? None? I started to realise that a lot of these active phytochemicals, these compounds that we were studying that made medicinal plants medicinal, are also present at very high levels in everyday culinary plants too. And that was when that aha moment kind of struck. I was like, well, I know what this compound is, I know what it does, I know it interacts with this body system in this particular way, and it happens to be in this food as well. Let's start messing around with some recipes. Been cooking since the age of 4 as well. As soon as me and my sister were old enough to know what a saucepan was, my mum would sort of hoik us into the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, actually preparing food. Never actually trained as a chef. I worked in kitchens on and off, but just been a home cook for years. So really I just wanted to kind of touch on this concept in the context of skincare. Antioxidants being good for the skin is hardly the revelation of the century. We know this. We know they have an important role to play. But the thing that I really want you to take away from this and really consider is that not all antioxidants are made the same. Okay? They've often been kind of clumped together and marketed together, and that's a big mistake. There's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of compounds in the plant kingdom that can have an antioxidant function. Some of these can be colour pigments, like, for example, beta-cyanin that you'll find in beetroot, that gives it that vivid purple colour. Some of these things can be secondary metabolites within the plant. Some of them can even form part of the structure of the plant. So with that in mind, the way that they behave in the body is going to be drastically different as well. They're not all going to disarm the same kind of free radicals. They're not all going to move to the same tissues. So let's use the example of vitamin C. It's water soluble. That means it's going to be most active within the systemic circulation. So that's, we know that it supports white blood cell function. It helps white blood cells actually let out hydrogen peroxide when faced with an invader. We also know that it can be quite beneficial for the health of the blood vessels, helping to protect against damage to the inner lining. Others are fat soluble. Now these are the ones that are really, really relevant to skin health. The reason for that is the fat-soluble antioxidants will actually start to migrate into fatty tissues. They will naturally move into those kind of tissues. Now, the carotenoids, the things that give, like beta-carotene, alpha-carotene, astaxanthin, zeaxanthin, those kind of compounds that you've probably heard of, these will actually start to accumulate in the subcutaneous layer of the skin. They will start to migrate into that area of the tissue, and they will start to build up. Have you ever heard of the condition called hypercarotenemia? I didn't make that up. That's when people that eat lots of carotenoids, people that eat loads of carrots, loads of red peppers, things like that, they will actually get a tinge to the skin. And that's very real, and I've seen it happen. Especially with raw foodists, people that do a lot of juicing, things like that, you will actually start to notice it. Will start to accumulate in that layer of the skin, and that's where they will actually provide their protection. They will protect the collagen from free radical damage. This is an interesting point, actually. The more body fat someone has, the more of these types of antioxidants they will actually need to consume, because the adipose tissue will suck them up very, very quickly. And once they're in that tissue, there's no way of them getting back into circulation. So that brings me on to recipe number 1. This recipe, right, obviously time's not on my side, so I'm not actually going to be cooking this dish. I'm just going to be doing some of the prep, talking about the ingredients. This recipe is like a carotenoid bath. It is packed up to the eyeballs with carotenoids, and that's the proper pepper soup. Say it really fast. Okay, let's imagine this is going to be cooked. The first ingredient to go with this is red onion. That deep red colour pigment, that's given by a group of compounds called flavonoids. Very, very good for the health of the cardiovascular system. But onions and garlic and all the alliums are also very, very rich sources of sulfur, one of the key constituents for connective tissues, including the extracellular matrix, that thing that holds all tissues in place. So really, really good for keeping the skin in check. So just going to crudely prep this. I usually cry like a baby when I peel onions, so if I turn into a streaming wreck, I apologise. So yeah, literally just nice and fine. And there we go. Literally, whenever you use any of the kind of fragrant plants, so things like the garlic and the onions, always start off with those. Always start off with those in a little bit of oil. Always salt it as well. And yeah, too much salt's bad for you, yada yada. A little bit is really, really important because it pulls all of those flavours out. It makes those flavours actually jump forwards. If you don't season it at that point, those flavours just get lost. And then this stuff here. Definitely one of the most powerful medicinal plants on the face of this planet. Virtually every single traditional medical system in the world uses garlic somewhere, whether it's Tibetan medicine, whether it's Ayurvedic medicine, whether it's TCM, any of these kind of disciplines use garlic. Now, several things with garlic. Obviously, like I said, in the context of skin health, it's the sulfur content. Fantastic for the immune system. Those volatile compounds, those things that stay on your breath for 2 weeks after you've been eating too much. Those compounds, they can only be removed from the body via one route and one route alone. They don't come through the kidneys, they don't come through the bowels, it's via the breath. As those oils move through the respiratory tract, they can actually help to pluck off viruses and bugs that are kicking around in it. So that's quite good. Also contains a compound called ayoine. Ayoine basically has an interaction with platelet aggregation factor within the blood, helps to reduce clotting. So powerful is that effect that some surgeons have actually warned people to reduce garlic consumption a couple of days leading up to surgery. Isn't that interesting? Because it would increase their risk of bleeding excessively. Also try and crush the garlic straight away, because when you crush it, some of the enzymes become more active, and some of these like active phytochemical compounds are more bioavailable. Right, red peppers. These are full of the carotenoids, those antioxidant pigments that are going to start to move into the subcutaneous tissue. So, I mean, for the benefit of this, I just chop it quite chunky. So at this point, by the way, just in a little oil, you just saute this off until everything becomes fragrant, until the onions start to soften. At that point, you throw the peppers in.